echo sings for you. Rain falls on this town as you fall into the light. It's dark as
Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, reporting back on what I think is my 7th day, or our 7th day, in our trip up to the Arctic Circle, Finland, and then also a little bit of Denmark and Sweden. And getting towards the end of the trip now, we woke up in our hotel in Helsinki, of course, after the long train journey the day before. And quite a nice hotel. It was one Hotel Arthur, recommended by a friend. And it was pretty good, and pretty good for the money, and the breakfast was, I think, maybe the best we had in all the hotels. The one on the first day was good, but it was still a very good breakfast. So, yeah, went there, and then it was our day in Helsinki. Now, of course, I had explored Helsinki quite a bit before, so the common thing to do is to go out to the island. I think it's called Suomenlinna, something like that, where there's all the fortifications and stuff. But I'd done that already. Tanya wasn't interested in that. And I'd said to Tanya, Luke, what do you want to do? Here are the options. What do you want to do? And I actually think that's really important, because I think a lot of people, when we're traveling with children, and I know my parents were like this, they treat kids as this accessory that they follow along doing what you want to do, or they assume that kids want something, though they assume that the kids want to go to the theme park or that. And obviously sometimes you get it right, but sometimes you get it wrong. And, of course, kids should follow their parents sometimes. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Nobody likes over-entitled, spoiled kids. But I actually think it's a really good thing to actually ask a child, what do you want to do? And explore the options with them. And what Tanya had said is she wanted to go to the art gallery. Now, the main art gallery in Helsinki is called the Ateneum. And it's one of those grand classical buildings across the road from the station where, the national collection of art is stored. And it was a bloody good art gallery, I will say that. But what was interesting, Tanya had never been to an art gallery before, and she loves art. And so what we did is we went in, and I said, look, you don't have to rush around. You don't have to think about me in any of this. Here's your sketch pad. Here are your drawing pens. Draw what you want. This is your chance to spend as long as you want, but draw, be creative. Find something that interests you and draw it. And off she went. And she did just that. And she got a bit frustrated at first, because the first thing she started drawing was a statue of a woman in a headscarf, looking a bit like Mother Mary. It wasn't. But and she got frustrated with that. She didn't think her drawing was very good. I thought it was excellent, but Tanya's a bit of a perfectionist. But then she went and found other stuff, and that was great. And while she did that, I amused myself. Now, I don't know if I've ever talked about this before, but back in 2015, I went to the main National Gallery in Oslo. And I realised that although I like art galleries, I never really understood them or got as much from them as I thought I should. So what I did is I instituted this thing where I just wandered around, saw a painting that said something to me, and then sat in front of it and wrote a short vignette, which is a very short story, about 250 words, about what that painting says to me. Then I find out the name of the painting, the year it's painted, the painter, and later I might do some research to see what the painting is actually meant to be of. But I found it was a really good way to get into art, and I've been doing it ever since. And so I went around, just wandered around, and when I saw a painting that did something for me, I wrote a vignette about it. And I wrote 4 in total, which is actually the most I've ever written in a gallery. I find that when I get to 4 after that, my brain's a bit addled and can't cope with any more. And it was a wonderful gallery. There was stuff by some very famous artists. There was Van Gogh in there. There was some Matisse and stuff like that. Just trying to think, who's the Tahiti guy? Paul Gauguin. But may not have been a Matisse. Definitely Gauguin. But I was interested in the Finnish art, the art that depicts Finland, and there's some of that. One I didn't write a vignette about was a wonderful triptych of scenes from the Kalevala, which is apparently the Finnish national epic, and it told one particular story from the Kalevala, and it really interested me, and I thought, I'd like to write a short story about that one day. So I did take a picture of it, and I'm going to perhaps research that, and that might be something to explore later on. And that's a great thing with travelling, is you pick up these random things, and then later, when you're back home, months, years later, you can pick them up and go with them. And I never have heard of the Kalevala otherwise. So, yeah, that's that. So we did that. And then Tanya wanted to go for lunch. She wanted Japanese food. And so we found a place, and we had to walk. It was in a shopping centre above the bus station. We had to walk through the station. We walked past a very weird art gallery that had these. I think it was largely underground, but it had these kind of skylights that came up and became sculptures above ground in a sort of square. So we took a photo by that, and then we went to a ramen place, and she loved the ramen place. And yes, it was nice. It was actually a Japanese lady serving, which is very rare in these things. And then we walked back to the hotel, got the luggage, and took the train to the airport. And so that was the end of our Finland trip. I will reflect all of it at the end, in tomorrow's video I reflect on the trip as a whole. But we did very like Finland, very much like Finland, both of us. The big story about the flight, by the way, Helsinki Airport's very nice, but it was to Arlanda in Stockholm, which I've not used before. I'd used the other airport in Stockholm before. But there was a lot of crosswinds. It was a lot of turbulence as we were coming in. And it was so bad that we failed to land, and he was making the landing, and he failed to land, and we had to go round and approach from another direction. And I've never, ever had that before. In all my travels, I've never had a failed landing before. So, what that meant is we got in really late, because I think we were running a bit late anyway. Then we got this train in from Arlanda, because Stockholm's airports are miles from Stockholm. And we got this train in, and got the ticket, went down to the station, got on the train, we go along, and then the guy came to check the tickets, and he's like, you can't use this ticket. I'm like, why? I asked for a ticket to Stockholm. I'm on the train to Stockholm. And he's like, yeah, it's a different company. He says, I get it all the time. And I said, oh, yeah, well, in Britain we've had privatisation. It's a disaster. And he's like, privatisation of railways never works. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And he's like, you know what? You can travel for free. And so what a lovely man. So well done to the Swedish National Railways, or what's left of them. I wish everything was Swedish National Railways, may I say that, because privatisation of railways, oh God, no. Anyway, at least we're undoing it in Britain, slowly. So there we are, and then at Stockholm Central Station, we transferred to the Underground, and took the Underground to the part of the city where our hotel or hostel for the night was. It was a hostel, but we had a private room, and it's on an island called Södermalm. And basically, Stockholm is built. Some of it is on the mainland, but it also occupies a lot of islands. It's in the middle of an archipelago of islands, and one of the large ones is the Södermalm, and our hotel/hostel was there. We had a little bit of a wander around to get to it. It looked a bit of a seedy area, but the hostel was fine enough, and we went to sleep, and that was the end of the day. And a fun day it was too. It's me, Uncle Travelling Matt, saying, keep travelling.
Come on closer. The echo sings for you.